Long before the rise of humanity, before the first forests spread across the continents, Earth was a world ruled by creatures so strange that even modern science struggles to fully understand them. Across ancient oceans, alien silhouettes drifted through dim prehistoric waters. On land, bizarre animals stalked primeval landscapes unlike anything seen today. Some possessed towering spines that rose like sails above their backs. Others carried jaws shaped like living traps, or bodies that seemed assembled from entirely different creatures. For millions of years, these organisms thrived in ecosystems that have long since vanished. Yet their existence was not merely unusual, it was revolutionary. Each of them represents an evolutionary experiment, a chapter in Earth's deep history when nature explored possibilities far stranger than the animals that survive today. Today, paleontologists uncover their remains buried deep within sedimentary rock layers, slowly piecing together the story of some of the most extraordinary life forms that ever lived. Among the most mysterious of these creatures lies an animal whose anatomy appears almost impossible. In the late Permian period, roughly 260 million years ago, the landscapes of what is now Russia were dominated by vast floodplains, dotted with shallow rivers and dense vegetation. The climate was warm, and life on land was diversifying rapidly after millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. But among the reptiles that roamed these environments, one species stands out as particularly bizarre. The skull alone could stretch nearly 2 meters in length. Yet the most remarkable feature was not its size. It was the enormous circular opening that dominated the top of its head. This animal was Astonishing, a massive therapsid whose appearance has puzzled scientists for decades. The fossilized skulls of Astonishing were first discovered in Permian deposits of the Russian platform during the early 20th century. At first glance, the creature appeared almost monstrous, its skull decorated with multiple horn-like protrusions extending from the cheeks and forehead. These structures may have been used in combat between rivals, or perhaps as visual displays during mating rituals. Their exact purpose remains uncertain, but they suggest that this prehistoric animal relied heavily on visual dominance within its environment. Astonishing belonged to a group known as therapsids, ancient relatives of mammals that dominated terrestrial ecosystems before the age of dinosaurs. Its body likely measured nearly 4 meters in length, supported by thick limbs and a heavy torso. Yet despite its intimidating skull, Astonishing was probably a herbivore, feeding on the lush vegetation that covered Permian floodplains. The strange skull structure, combined with its horned appearance, makes Astonishing one of the most unusual animals of the Permian world. But even stranger creatures existed long before it. Traveling further back in time, more than 500 million years ago, the Earth was a very different place. During the Cambrian period, life existed almost entirely within the oceans. Yet this was a time of extraordinary biological innovation. In a relatively short span of geological time, an event known as the Cambrian explosion produced an astonishing diversity of new body plans. Among the most bizarre of these creatures was an animal whose anatomy defies conventional classification. It had 5 eyes, a long flexible proboscis, and a circular mouth lined with sharp tooth-like plates. This strange organism was known as Opabinia. The first fossils of Opabinia were discovered in the famous Burgess Shale deposits of British Columbia, Canada, one of the most important fossil sites ever found. These rocks preserve incredibly detailed impressions of soft-bodied organisms that lived approximately 508 million years ago. When paleontologists first reconstructed Opabinia from these fossils, the results seemed so unusual that many scientists initially doubted the interpretation. Its 5 eyes were arranged along the top of its head, providing a wide field of vision in the dim Cambrian seas. Extending from the front of its body was a flexible trunk-like appendage, which likely functioned as a feeding tool. At the end of this proboscis sat a small claw, capable of grasping tiny prey from the seafloor. Behind the head, the body consisted of multiple segmented lobes, each bearing delicate flaps used for swimming through the water. Along its underside ran a row of gill structures that allowed it to extract oxygen from the ocean. Despite its alien appearance, Opabinia was an early relative of arthropods, the group that would later give rise to insects, crustaceans, and spiders. Its strange body plan represents one of the many experimental designs that emerged during the Cambrian explosion. Most of these evolutionary experiments eventually disappeared, but for millions of years, Opabinia thrived within the ancient seas. Yet perhaps one of the most iconic bizarre creatures of prehistory appeared much later, during the early days of the dinosaurs. Around 230 million years ago, during the late Triassic period, the supercontinent Pangaea stretched across much of the planet. Vast deserts alternated with seasonal floodplains, creating diverse habitats for early reptiles. Within these environments lived a creature that seemed almost like a hybrid between a crocodile and a giraffe. This animal was Tanystropheus. The most striking feature of Tanystropheus was its neck, an astonishing structure that could measure more than 3 meters in length. In fact, nearly half the animal's entire body length consisted of its neck alone. Yet, unlike modern animals with long necks, Tanystropheus did not possess dozens of small vertebrae. Instead, its neck was composed of only a handful of extremely elongated bones, each stretched to remarkable proportions. For decades, paleontologists debated how this animal lived. Some early researchers believed Tanystropheus might have been a terrestrial predator, using its long neck to reach into dense vegetation or strike at prey from a distance. However, more recent fossil discoveries suggest a different story. The anatomy of its limbs and teeth indicates that Tanystropheus likely spent much of its time near coastal waters, hunting fish and small aquatic animals. By keeping its body hidden near the shoreline while extending its long neck into the water, Tanystropheus may have been able to ambush prey with sudden precision. This unusual feeding strategy would have given it a significant advantage in prehistoric coastal ecosystems. Yet while Tanystropheus appears strange by modern standards, another prehistoric creature possessed a feature so extraordinary that even experienced paleontologists initially struggled to interpret it. In the Red Desert formations of North Africa, fossil hunters uncovered the remains of a predator unlike any other known dinosaur. Its skull was long and narrow, resembling that of a crocodile. But rising from its back was a massive sail-like structure formed by elongated vertebral spines. This animal was Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus lived during the Cretaceous period, around 95 million years ago. It is believed to have been one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs ever discovered, possibly exceeding even the famous Tyrannosaurus rex in length. But what truly sets Spinosaurus apart is its unusual anatomy. The tall neural spines along its back formed a sail that could reach nearly 2 meters in height. Scientists have proposed many possible functions for this structure. Some believe it may have served as a display feature used to intimidate rivals or attract mates. Others suggest it may have helped regulate body temperature by absorbing or releasing heat. More recent research has revealed something even more remarkable. Unlike most large dinosaurs, Spinosaurus appears to have been semi-aquatic. Its dense bones, paddle-like tail, and crocodile-like jaws suggest it was adapted for hunting within rivers and coastal waters. This discovery challenges traditional ideas about dinosaur ecology and highlights just how diverse prehistoric life truly was. Yet the deeper paleontologists explore Earth's fossil record, the more extraordinary creatures they uncover. And among them lies another species whose anatomy seems so unusual that it reshaped our understanding of early animal evolution entirely. The fossil that would challenge long-held assumptions about prehistoric life was uncovered in the barren shale beds of the Canadian Rockies, within the same ancient sediments that had preserved the strange body of Opabinia. For decades, paleontologists had studied the Burgess Shale deposits, carefully splitting layers of rock that once formed the muddy floor of a Cambrian sea. With each strike of a chisel, another fragment of a long-vanished ecosystem emerged from the stone. But one particular fossil left researchers deeply perplexed. At first glance, it appeared to be composed of several unrelated animals. It possessed a soft, slug-like body lined with rows of rigid spikes. Beneath this armored back ran a series of delicate tentacle-like appendages, and at the front sat a circular mouth ringed with hardened plates. The creature was named Hallucigenia, a fitting title for an organism that initially seemed almost hallucinatory in its design. When the first reconstruction was proposed in the 1970s, Scientists believed the animal walked on the long spines that protruded from its body, while the delicate tentacles extended upward. But something about the reconstruction never quite made sense. The legs appeared too rigid to support movement, and the tentacles seemed far too fragile to face the ocean floor. Years later, with the discovery of additional fossils and the use of modern imaging techniques, researchers realized the original interpretation had been completely reversed. Hallucigenia had been reconstructed upside down. The spines that were once believed to be legs were actually defensive structures lining its back, rigid armor designed to deter predators in the Cambrian seas. The tentacle-like appendages, meanwhile, were the creature's true legs, allowing it to crawl slowly across the seafloor. This reinterpretation transformed hallucigenia from a bizarre curiosity into a crucial piece of the evolutionary puzzle. Today, scientists believe it represents an early relative of modern velvet worms, an obscure group of soft-bodied animals that still survive in humid forests around the world. In this strange creature, preserved within half-billion-year-old sediments, researchers found clues to the ancient ancestry of an entire branch of animal life. Yet while hallucigenia's unusual anatomy emerged from the earliest chapters of complex life, other bizarre creatures evolved much later, during an age when giant reptiles dominated the continents. Roughly 120 million years ago, during the early Cretaceous period, lush forests covered much of what is now northeastern China. Volcanic ash from nearby eruptions frequently blanketed the region, creating ideal conditions for fossil preservation. Over millions of years, these sediments formed what paleontologists now call the G-hole biota, one of the most extraordinary fossil deposits ever discovered. Among the animals uncovered here was a small dinosaur whose appearance seemed almost impossible. Possessed 4 wings. The creature was named Microraptor. At first glance, Microraptor resembles a miniature version of larger predatory dinosaurs like Velociraptor. Its body measured little more than a meter in length, and its jaws were filled with sharp, serrated teeth. But the true surprise lay in the distribution of its feathers. Not only did Microraptor possess feathered forelimbs, forming the wings typical of birds, but its hind legs were also covered in long flight feathers. This created a 4-winged configuration unlike any living animal. The discovery sparked intense debate among scientists. Could Microraptor truly fly? Detailed aerodynamic studies suggest that it likely glided between trees using all 4 wings in a unique arrangement, creating a kind of prehistoric biplane. Its long tail, tipped with additional feathers, probably functioned as a stabilizing rudder during flight. These adaptations reveal an important chapter in the evolution of birds. Flight, it seems, did not emerge through a single simple pathway. Instead, early feathered dinosaurs experimented with multiple aerodynamic designs before the modern avian wing finally evolved. Microraptor represents one of those early evolutionary experiments, a creature caught between the worlds of dinosaurs and birds. Yet some prehistoric animals experimented with body designs far more extreme than extra wings. One of the strangest skulls ever discovered belonged to a creature that lived nearly 250 million years ago, shortly after the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history. At the end of the Permian period, a catastrophic event known as the Permian-Triassic extinction wiped out nearly 90% of all species on the planet. The ecosystems that followed were fragile, slowly rebuilding themselves over millions of years. Within this recovering world lived a reptile whose skull resembled a mechanical device more than a living organism. Its name was Adaptations. When paleontologists first discovered the fossilized remains of Adaptations in southern China, the animal's head appeared unlike anything previously known. Its jaws extended outward in a strange hammer-shaped formation. The upper jaw spread horizontally like a wide shovel, while the lower jaw curved downward beneath it. Along these flattened jaws grew hundreds of fine needle-like teeth. At first, researchers struggled to interpret this unusual anatomy. But closer examination revealed an elegant feeding strategy hidden within the bizarre structure. Adaptations was not a predator. Instead, it was a filter feeder. By sweeping its wide jaws through shallow marine sediments, the reptile could scoop up mud and water. The dense mesh of needle-shaped teeth then filtered out tiny plant fragments and algae. This feeding method allowed Adaptations to exploit food sources that few other animals could access. In a world still recovering from mass extinction, such specialized adaptations were key to survival. The strange hammer-shaped skull, once thought to be a fossil deformation, was in fact a remarkable evolutionary innovation. But evolution's experiments did not end there. Another extraordinary creature, discovered within the same Cambrian fossil beds that revealed opabinia and hallucigenia, pushed the boundaries of prehistoric anatomy even further. This animal possessed a body lined with swimming flaps, a circular mouth filled with serrated plates, and two enormous grasping appendages extending from its head. Its name was Anomalocaris. For decades, paleontologists misidentified the fragments of this creature. The grasping appendages were initially described as shrimp-like animals. The circular mouth was thought to belong to a jellyfish, and the flattened body segments were classified as an entirely separate species. It was only in the late 20th century that scientists realized these fossils all belonged to the same organism. Anomalocaris was not merely another Cambrian creature. It was the largest predator of its time. Reaching lengths of nearly 1 meter, it dwarfed most other animals in the Cambrian seas. Its flexible body allowed it to swim gracefully through the water using wave-like movements of its lateral flaps. At the front, the two spiny appendages acted as grasping arms capable of capturing prey. Once seized, the victim was brought toward the circular mouth, an arrangement of hardened plates forming a powerful crushing mechanism. This unusual feeding apparatus allowed Anomalocaris to break through the protective shells of early arthropods, making it one of the first apex predators in Earth's history. Its presence dramatically altered Cambrian ecosystems, triggering an evolutionary arms race between predator and prey. Some species evolved thicker armor. Others developed the ability to burrow into sediments for protection. In this way, Anomalocaris helped shape the course of early animal evolution. Yet even among the strange creatures of prehistoric Earth, a few stand out as particularly extraordinary, animals whose bodies appear almost impossible when compared to modern life. And among the final discoveries waiting in the fossil record lies a creature whose towering anatomy once dominated the landscapes of an ancient continent, a giant whose bizarre form continues to fascinate scientists to this day. More than 80 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period, the southern continents of Earth were separated by vast oceans. What is now South America had become an isolated landmass, developing ecosystems unlike those found anywhere else on the planet. Here, immense river systems cut through dense forests and wide floodplains. The climate was warm and humid, and the skies were often filled with enormous flying reptiles. Beneath this prehistoric canopy, dinosaurs continued to evolve in remarkable directions, producing species that looked dramatically different from their relatives on other continents. Among the most unusual of these animals was a giant whose body seemed almost absurdly constructed. This dinosaur possessed an enormous body supported by pillar-like legs, a long tail extending behind it, and an impossibly elongated neck that stretched far above the surrounding vegetation. Its name was Amargasaurus. First discovered in the early 1990s within sedimentary rock formations in Argentina, Amargasaurus immediately caught the attention of paleontologists for one extraordinary reason. Running along its neck were two parallel rows of extremely long neural spines. These spines extended vertically from the vertebrae, forming a striking double structure unlike anything seen in other sauropod dinosaurs. Some of these spines measured more than 60 centimeters in length, creating a dramatic silhouette that would have been unmistakable in the prehistoric landscape. Scientists have proposed several possible explanations for this bizarre feature. One possibility is that the spines supported a skin sail, similar to the structure seen in Spinosaurus. Such a sail could have been used for visual display, allowing individuals to signal dominance or attract potential mates across open floodplains. Another theory suggests the spines may have supported keratinous sheaths, forming paired spikes along the neck that served as defensive weapons against predators. Whatever their exact purpose, the unusual anatomy of Amargasaurus highlights the extraordinary diversity of body structures that evolved among sauropods. Yet even more unusual animals would emerge in the ancient oceans. During the Devonian period, roughly 380 million years ago, life in the seas was undergoing rapid transformation. Fish were diversifying into new ecological roles, filling niches that had never existed before. Among these early vertebrates appeared one of the most bizarre predators ever discovered. It possessed a heavily armored head, a body covered in protective plates, and instead of teeth, it carried razor-sharp bony blades that formed a powerful crushing beak. This creature was Dunkleistus. The fossil remains of Dunkleistus have been discovered in Devonian marine deposits across North America, Europe, and North Africa. These sediments preserve fragments of an animal that could grow more than 6 meters in length, making it one of the largest predators of its era. Unlike modern sharks, which rely on replaceable teeth, Dunkleistus used massive bony plates within its jaws to capture and slice apart prey. These plates formed a shearing mechanism capable of generating extraordinary bite forces, possibly exceeding that of many modern marine predators. When the jaws closed, the sharpened edges of the plates slid past one another like giant scissors, slicing through flesh and bone alike. The head and upper body were protected by thick armor plates that formed an almost helmet-like shield around the skull. Yet, despite this heavy armor, Dunkleistus was not a slow-moving creature. Studies of its jaw mechanics suggest that the animal could open its mouth with astonishing speed, creating suction that pulled prey directly into its crushing jaws. In the Devonian seas, Dunkleistus stood at the top of the food chain, an apex predator whose unusual anatomy represented a powerful evolutionary innovation. But while Dunkleistus ruled the oceans, another bizarre creature evolved in the skies above prehistoric landscapes. During the Jurassic period, approximately 150 million years ago, a group of flying reptiles known as pterosaurs dominated the air. Among them existed species of enormous size, capable of gliding across vast distances in search of food. Yet one particular pterosaur possessed a feature that set it apart from nearly every other flying animal that has ever existed. Rising from the back of its skull was an enormous crest, an elaborate structure that extended backward like the sail of a ship. This species was known as Tapejara. The crest of Tapejara was not a simple bony ridge. Instead, it consisted of a combination of bone and soft tissue that likely formed a large, colorful display. Fossil impressions preserved within Brazilian limestone deposits reveal that this crest could have been far larger than the skull itself. Scientists believe such crests were used for visual communication, allowing individuals to recognize members of their own species or attract potential mates. Tapejara likely spent much of its life soaring above coastal lagoons and inland lakes, searching for fish and small animals near the water's surface. Its beak lacked teeth, suggesting it relied on precision and agility rather than brute force to capture prey. The elaborate crest, though seemingly impractical, may have played a crucial role in the social lives of these prehistoric flyers. Yet among all bizarre prehistoric creatures, perhaps none captured scientific imagination more than a small animal discovered within the limestone quarries of Germany in the 19th century. At first glance, the fossil appeared to resemble a bird. It possessed delicate wings lined with feathers and a lightweight skeletal structure adapted for flight. But closer examination revealed something unexpected. Its jaws were filled with teeth. Its wings ended in clawed fingers, and extending behind its body was a long reptilian tail. This remarkable creature was Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx lived during the late Jurassic period and represents one of the most famous transitional fossils ever discovered. It combines characteristics of both dinosaurs and modern birds, offering a rare glimpse into the evolutionary origin of flight. The feather impressions preserved alongside its skeleton are among the most detailed fossilized feathers ever found. These feathers were asymmetrical, an aerodynamic design that indicates Archaeopteryx was capable of powered flight, or at least short bursts of flapping between trees. Yet its skeletal anatomy still retained many dinosaur-like features. The clawed fingers on its wings may have allowed it to climb tree trunks, while its long tail provided balance during gliding or flight. Archaeopteryx stands as one of the clearest examples of evolution in action, a creature bridging two very different branches of life. From the alien oceans of the Cambrian to the towering dinosaurs of the Cretaceous, the fossil record reveals a planet shaped by endless biological experimentation. Many of the most bizarre creatures that ever lived have long since vanished. Yet their fossils remain locked within ancient rock layers, waiting to be discovered. Each new excavation adds another piece to the vast puzzle of Earth's prehistoric past. And with every fossil unearthed, paleontologists are reminded of a profound truth. The history of life on this planet is far stranger, far more complex, and far more fascinating than anyone could have ever imagined.